Hey guys, Ramsey here. Tonight we've got a late night insight video, quick hit video, whatever you'd like to call it, on a house and a brand that I actually have a full bottle of one of their fragrances on the way. It's not this one, but I did wear this as my scent of the day today, and it inspired my This Is Not a Top 10 Osmanthus slash Narcissus video. This is on the Osmanthus side, and it's from the house of Nishane, and it's called Nefs. So again, this is not the one that I have a full bottle of, but I do have a full bottle of a Nishane on the way, thank God. And there's a story behind all that. If you've been following the channel, it's been like a 6-month ordeal. I will have a huge party when this package arrives, and then I have another package coming from another European country. So I'm just, all over Europe, just scoring perfume. But this is Nishane's Nefs, and I want to do this video because I'm not going to buy a bottle of this, I'll tell you that right now. But this is surprisingly an enjoyable fragrance, and I'll give you kind of the scoop on it. So it came out in 2019, and the perfumer is Christian Carbonell, aka Chris Maurice. And I'm really starting to somewhat enjoy his work, surprisingly. I think maybe his most famous couple fragrances I'm not as familiar with. Like, he did La Capitale for Xerjoff. I don't like Xerjoff. He did this fragrance called Herba Pura from Xerjoff. Again, not a big fan of Xerjoff. And he's done some other things. The one from him that I really want is Camel by Zoologist. Camel is on my wish list. Maybe even blind buy wish list. I don't know, but I'm going to wait because I've spent some money over the last couple months. And so I'm kind of in this hold mode, if you will, especially with inflation and Christmas, the holidays coming and all this crazy stuff going on in the world. But if I had to blind buy a couple perfumes, Camel would be on this list. So I say all that to say he's a perfumer that I really rate, okay? And he also did, if you've been following my channel, I have reviewed, I think, a couple of his perfumes. If I'm not mistaken, I've reviewed a couple of his fragrances. I'd have to go back and see which ones they were. But he's a perfumer that I have talked about before. He's a very interesting fellow. We'll talk a little bit about him. But let me tell you kind of the feel of this Nishane Nefs. And apparently this is a very popular fragrance right now. It really took off in the last couple of years. Came out in 2019. And Nishane is a house that for me is kind of hit or miss. There's some stuff that they have created that I really like, and there's some stuff that I think is kind of subpar. I think they're kind of taking advantage of that niche position that they're in. But overall, they're a house that I rate. I'm not a big fan of Ani, even though I own a bottle. I put that in my fragrances I used to love list that now I don't really care for anymore. But I'm not one to sell bottles also. So even though Ani, when I wear it, I always think, why don't I just wear a Guerlain? No one does vanilla like Guerlain, and I always feel like I'm wearing something magical and special when I'm wearing a Guerlain. Why am I subjecting myself to wearing Ani? So they have fragrances for me that are hit or miss, but mostly I rate the brand. I think they do a decent job. And this is one where when I saw the description, sweet and spicy, I was like, oh God, this is going to be way too sweet for me. And it, for the most part, it actually is. However, we'll get into how and why and my thoughts on it, but for somehow, some way, they created this sweet fragrance that I don't really hate. And we'll talk about a couple other fragrances that kind of come to mind, but it opens up with this very Spirit of Dubai, Middle Eastern, like scratchy, loud saffron with honey and fig, okay? And that honey note is there from the very beginning, and it gives it this, like, it really mixes with the saffron. I just did a This Is Not a Top 10 saffron video that you can go check out. And in that video, we talked a little bit about what saffron smells like. And I always said saffron feels like if you had like a jar, saffron would fill it up, like it's volume. Saffron to me smells like you're smelling volume, like you're smelling something that has real, not just weight, but also width. You know what I mean? It's a very loud and big note to me. mostly because of how the perfumers use it, and mostly because it's so popular in this Middle Eastern style fragrance. This is one such fragrance, okay? When I first smelled it, I was reminded of one fragrance I've reviewed on the channel already, and it's from the Spirit of Dubai, and it's called Fakhama. It's the black one, okay? So I've done an entire Spirit of Dubai first edition. I've reviewed them all, so you can go check out the first edition. But Fakhama is the one that kind of came to mind. And the reason Fakhama came to mind is that Fakhama has this giant Middle Eastern, Oriental, spicy rose. While Fakhama uses rose with like this caramel, you know, civet and caramel and stuff like that, there's also a big saffron note in Fakhama. And I think there's other differences, of course, but that's the first thing that kind of popped in my head. This is a Fakhama style fragrance, and it's a Spirit of Dubai. More importantly than just saying it smells like Fakhama, I would say it smells like a Spirit of Dubai fragrance. And I said, oh no. But there was something about it that I actually really liked. I kind of put my prejudice aside, and I said, you know what? Even though this is sweet, and even though this is loud, and even though this is, you know, kind of over the top, it seems boisterous. That's a good word for Nefs. It really does seem boisterous, okay? Some people love that. Some people hate it. I can take it or leave it. It depends on the mood that I'm in. But imagine if you took Fakhama and you added this fig note, because there's no fig in Fakhama. Of the million notes that are listed, coffee, fruity notes, oud, orange, elemi, dried fruits, candied fruits, sandalwood, cypriol, benzoin, vanilla, patchouli, vetiver, coriander, ginger, rose, saffron. I mean, you can just go on. Amber, castoreum, civet, moss. There's all these notes, but there isn't a fig note. So it really does smell. The fig note here is very well done too, by the way, I should mention. There's a couple fragrances I talked about in my Roja top 35. I did a top 35 countdown of my favorite Rojas, and I ranked them. And a couple Rojas used a fig note. One is this Fetiche Poron, which I really rate. And this ended up, I think, being in my top 5. Definitely, maybe even top 3. And there was a fig note in Roja's Amber Oud, which I thought was probably decent. I probably wouldn't buy a bottle, but I did enjoy that. So it's a note that I prefer to smell fig when it's not the central note. I don't like fig forward fragrances, okay? I like fig to be part of the overall composition, and that's exactly how it is here in Nefs. Fig is a supporting note from the very opening, okay? And it's a great example. This fragrance is, this is kind of the summary that I came up with in my head as I was smelling this fragrance. I said, you know what? This fragrance is an example of a Turkish house using a perfumer with a French heritage whose company is located in Spain, and they're doing a Middle Eastern style fragrance. How about that? You know, it is very competently done, though. They did a very good job. And so what ends up happening is, with Nefs, is it begins to bring in this osmanthus. And the osmanthus is a integral part of this fragrance. And it will remind you of other osmanthus fragrances. And if you get a chance, go watch my This Is Not a Top 10 Osmanthus video that I did just today. And I really talked about the note, and I talked about how it feels in a composition. In a nutshell, osmanthus can have this jasmine-like, fruity aspect. Some people say it smells of all different types of fruits. I think it smells like apricot. Apricot and peach are the most common. Someone in the comments mentioned that it smells like peach-flavored oatmeal. And I thought, you know what, that's very strange, but it makes perfect sense. Quaker oats, peach-flavored oatmeal. And so it has that vibe about it, but it also has this leatheriness about it, and it also can have this unwashed animalic type vibe underneath, which I really enjoy those animalic notes. So osmanthus is a note that I really rate. It's one of my favorite floral notes. And with the osmanthus, you obviously get the rose and geranium, which are just made for each other combo, and you get nutmeg, a little bit of spiciness. And then in the base, what you end up getting is you get this lovely, creamy, and prominent peachy leather, okay? There's a leather note in the base, and what I ended up thinking as I was smelling this, the peach obviously from the osmanthus, the leather because osmanthus is leathery, but also there's also a leathery note underneath. There's a couple fragrances that use it. The first one that came to mind is actually this. This is Nishane's Herod. This was featured in our osmanthus video today. And Herod is basically this tobacco, peppery, cinnamony osmanthus fragrance is the best way to describe it. It's very warm, and if you like fragrances like tobacco vanille, you very well may like Herod. It is very sweet. There's a lot of vanilla in it is my biggest complaint. If you could take the vanilla out completely, or really somehow use a higher quality vanilla, maybe bourbon vanilla, Madagascar vanilla that is less sweet and highlights the unsweetened aspects of vanilla more, and take that amber wood thing that Parfums de Marly loves to use down, I think this would be a really good fragrance. I still enjoy wearing it, but I have to kind of stomach the sweetness. I have to grit my teeth, okay? The sweetness really bothers me in Herod. Surprisingly, today, while I was wearing Nefs, the sweetness did not bother me. I really expected it to. It was almost like I was waiting for it, and it never came. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's... there is one other fragrance that I wanted you to imagine while we're thinking about osmanthus perfumes, and that's this. Guerlain's Queer Intense. This also made the osmanthus countdown today. And Queer Intense is basically leather and osmanthus. I mean, it's literally that. But I love it because it's this big, bold, heavy, Baroque leather. I mean, in your face, it is what it is, and, it has no apologies. It's not taking anything back. That's Queer Intense. So imagine if you took these two and kind of combined them and added Fahama and the rose in the Middle Eastern style, and you get Nefs. And I can see why it's popular. I don't know if I said this, but Parfumo shows it as in the top 7, number 7 most popular unisex perfume, period, right now. So this thing took off like a rocket. I mean, this is a very popular fragrance all of a sudden, very hyped, which I knew nothing about. I didn't realize the hype was that real on Nefs. And so Herod pops into my mind because of this beautiful, warm, spicy element. And so Herod tackles that warm, spicy element with this tobacco and vanilla. Nefs uses an interesting combination, which turns out to be whiskey, oud, and leather. Okay, so those are the base elements, whiskey, oud, and leather. I never got very much whiskey. I kept trying to get the whiskey. I love whiskey. I love rum. I love cognac in perfumes. Cognac's probably my favorite liqueur note, but I love them all. And I kept kind of trying to get it, and I never really got it. I got, amber woody, oudy things, but I never really got whiskey, unfortunately. But they say it's there, and interestingly enough, there is a use of guardium balsam, and guardium balsam gives off this spicy, calming, almost like resinous vibe. Okay, so think resins, and think maybe hints of pine needle, so hints of these green touches throughout the guardium balsam. And some describe it as patchouli-like, and many perfumers use this guardium balsam now in almost like as a replacement for what was lost from the past. Because in the old days, a composition like this wouldn't have guardium balsam. It would have oak moss, or it would have ambergris, or something like that to act as a fixative to your skin. Well, now they don't have the ability to use oak moss like they used to in the good old days, because it gave 0.1% of you know, Scandinavians a rash in one study that they did 50 years ago, you know, some ridiculous reasoning that they used to ban it. And if you actually go read that study, it's insane. They actually put the oak moss on the skin and then they covered it up. And then they came back like 24 hours later and undid the covering and looked at it. Oh, look, you have a rash. No one's going to cover up their perfume afterwards on their hand with a bandage. It's just insane. The whole study was nuts. But long story short, is Guardian Balsam is used as a fixative now. It kind of fixes the perfume to the skin, and it acts as this resinous touch, which I really like. And especially since ambergris is too expensive. And so that's pretty much the journey. I mean, it does last a long time. It is loud, it's boisterous, but it has this sweetness that I think people around you would really like. The sweetness and the fact that it reminds me of other perfumes, and the fact that honestly, when I'm wearing it, if I pick up this Cuir Intense and just smell it from the atomizer, I'm like, man, I'd rather be wearing this. If I want to osmanthus, I'd rather wear this. It's not as sweet. It has more leather, which I like. Yes, it may not have the oud, but so what? I don't care. I mean, I like what I like, and I really love leather. And tobacco, and it also has tobacco. I have to say, I like Nefs, surprisingly. I thought it was going to be a thumbs down, but it actually ended up being kind of a thumbs up. Maybe a slight thumbs up. Maybe not all the way, but maybe just a slight thumbs up. It's good. The house, I would love to explore more from the house. I'd love to be able to do some videos. I think I do. I have a couple from the house. I've got one called Saffron Colonaise. I have a decant. So I will do more of these videos that I won't own a bottle of, that I'll just kind of be able to talk about. But you will see a full bottle coming from this house very soon. And I will tell the story again on camera about how these fragrances have been lost for the last 6 months. Well, they haven't been lost. I knew where they were. They just could not get to me for reasons I will promulgate during my unboxing video, which should hopefully be within the next week. Fingers crossed. So, that's my thoughts on Nefs. If you guys have experience with Nishane, the house in general, or if you have experience with Nefs, do let me know. You will see more videos on this house in the near future, and I'm just kind of putting these quick hit videos up because I want to create like a library of my thoughts. I want you to be able to, you know, if you have a fragrance you're thinking of testing or trying, I want you to be able to come to the channel, click on it, and go to the playlist, find the Nishane playlist, and see if I've done a video on the fragrance or not. And today, when you go, if you watch that, you know, this is not a top 10 on Narcissus and Osmanthus. You'll notice a couple of them, a good many of them, I will say, hey, there is already a review of this one on the channel. I've already done a review of this one on the channel. So the hard work is starting to kind of snowball, and I'm starting to be able to piggyback off of some of that and, you know, move on to other things. And I have a ton of samples. That's one of my problems. I'm so backed up. I could probably wear samples alone, just samples, just stuff like this. Just make samples as my scent of the day for the next 6 months. I mean, literally every single day. I have so many samples that I need to get through and talk about on the channel, but I just can't, I can't get myself to wear a sample, a new sample every day, or something I've only smelled once when I have this collection that I want to wear and enjoy, you know what I mean? So that is one of the downfalls of having a channel, is I'm constantly kind of testing stuff for you guys. And sometimes I don't get a chance to just step back and say, screw it, I'm wearing, well, sometimes I will do that, but not as much as I would like to, you know, say, screw it, I'm wearing my favorites, I'm wearing Bel Ami and Koros and Antaeus and Leonard Porom, and that's what we're going to do for a week straight, and screw the channel. It's just not in me. I'm in this groove now, and I feel like I got to keep it going. But yes, I will continue to put these videos up. I hope you appreciate them. I hope they give you something of value. This is definitely one to test. I think you would maybe be appreciative. Some people might be shocked I like this. But I mean, I like what I like. What can I say? I don't want to start lying to you guys. So, I mean, yes, it is sweet. I can tell it's sweet, and yet it doesn't bother me for some reason. So the ingredients must be decent. You know, I think Nishane uses decent ingredients. I don't think they use like the top-notch ingredients, but I think they use decent stuff. And it kind of comes through here. And I think Christian Carbonell, aka Chris Maurice, which apparently are both his names, is what he says, interestingly enough, did a good job. And, you know, I have to take my hat off to him. I think he's done a good job, and I'm interested in kind of diving into some of the other fragrances that he has done, especially Camel. I really want to try Camel. And Kajal Om. I've never tried Kajal Om. So anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate the support, feedback, you know, likes, subscriptions, all the stuff you guys do on the back end. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate every single one of my subscribers. You guys are amazing. Love interacting with you guys. Love seeing your faces in the comments. And I hope to read your thoughts about what you think of Nishane Nefs below. So everyone have a good evening, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Cheers, guys.